Humankind, Together We Rule today dropped a massive gameplay overview trailer, and in this video I will be breaking it down. I'm going to pause at key moments throughout, revealing new units and buildings, but in particular focusing on the core changes that will come in this expansion: spies, diplomats, envoys, and the Congress of Humankind, including and among other things like new cultures. If you enjoy, please do consider subscribing and liking the video, Humankind fans. I appreciate that. And also, Humankind is on a reasonable special and free-to-play weekend at the time of recording. You might be interested. I've got a link down below if you are. Either way, let's move through now and break down the Together We Rule, the Diplomacy expansion, as it's sort of being hailed as. I will pause like this throughout, but maybe not on every single unit, like the Scott unit there, I'm assuming, but rather focusing on the key details. Speaking of which, we're going to start by talking about agents, two new types of unit: envoys and spies. We'll start with, I think, the spy, because it's probably the most interesting. Here you can see a spy master in one era. We'll also see a spy from an earlier era later on. It has a sabotage and stealth mechanic. The sabotage allowing it to move through into enemy territory and disrupt their districts. And the stealth mechanic has been reworked as well. A little bit more on that in a second. But we should also consider the second type of agent. This is an envoy. Like the spies, envoys can move through into other territories. However, unlike the spies, they aren't stealthed. But it's important to note that they have no restrictions on their movement at all, so they don't need to try and hide. They can, at any point in the game, seemingly, move through into other territories to conduct diplomacy. They also mentioned that you could conduct diplomacy with the city-state neutral tribes, but we haven't heard too much about how they'll be changed in this update. We also see here a spy play out in practice, and I'm going to play it in slow motion, because what happens is the turn ends, and then the spy seems to conduct some sort of secret sabotage against the enemy units. So not only can we sabotage districts, but we can also sabotage enemy units with our spies. Here's the spy from a slightly earlier era. You'll see its UI looks a little bit different over on the right here, as it moves to click this little button and siphon the district. This allows the unit to take some of the yield, whatever it may be, from the district. It has to remain stealthed, and it has to remain there for a few turns. Interesting, potentially very powerful. We then also note the changes to stealth, pretty important. The way it's going to work now is, rather than being stealthed or unstealthed, a sort of binary decision, there'll be a stealth meter, and that will cool down, or enemies will wear away at your stealth, depending on their detection level, based on the best army, squadron, an interesting word, and the best district in the area. More districts, better armies will have greater detection and be able to reveal concealed or stealthed spies easier, is essentially how this seems to work out. So spies won't be able to conduct their siphon missions, for example, if they've been detected or uncovered. It also seems like they may take some damage. And then lastly, we see the new yield that is associated with these spies, and really with the expansion overall. It's called leverage, and you can find it on the map, kind of like intelligence, using these units, and also diplomatic cultures can find it all the time. More on that, though, in a little bit. Now we're going to move through to what they called power of negotiation. This is the part where we learn about embassies. Here you can see one on screen. It's a shared project alongside Wonders. This one has a cost of 1,400, and you can see that bar is not ticking up fast. This is a slow build, but it is a shared project, and as it comes to life, we see a diplomatic building, which unlocks this Embassy tab. A new tab for negotiating and spending our leverage, that diplomatic resource that we find on the map or what have you, on new interactions with players we've established an embassy with. We have leverage actions, which is what I'll call them, on the left, and then agreements, much more detailed than the treaties of days gone by in Humankind. These two fundamental things, the leverage actions, which spend those diplomatic points, and the agreements, look to be pretty significant. We can see 5 examples, the 5 of agreements. I'll focus on them first, and in particular we'll look at the science one, because this is the one that they actually revealed. Signing empires allow their researchers to communicate freely with one another, lowering the cost to replicate discoveries made by another. Basically, if you enact this, you will research technologies faster or at a lower cost if the person that you've signed the agreement with has already unlocked it. Nice. We're familiar with this kind of thing, so it's not entirely new to the 4X genre. It looks like it's implemented very cleanly though, which is really exciting. Over on the left-hand side, we see things that are less agreeable and more forced, these leverage actions, which take advantage of the leverage or leverage system to force things on our opponent, like expelling their military forces or sanctions. We do get a close-up of one example, Placate, which, to save you reading through it, is basically spread propaganda, lessen war support against you. This might let you end a war easier, with leverage instead of military. Overall, though, you can see there are some particularly spicy ones. Some of them are much more expensive than others. Over on the agreement side, we have everything from arms deals, diplomatic cooperation, refugee agreement, which may be, I don't know, movement of pops, monumental contractors suggesting something to do with industry or building. It looks really neat, and it will add a whole new layer to humankind. I'm very excited about it. Next, we move through to the third section, ruling together. This one is one I've been waiting for a long time. It's the Congress of Humankind. What we're looking at here seems to be a wonder related to it, though. That's the Congress HQ. Down here, we see the system itself play out. This is the Congress of Humankind, and first they give us an example of laws, where every player in the game is choosing to enact a law. Regular players will note that this is already a civic within Humankind. They may be taking all of those legal and law ones and putting them in here, adding others we don't yet know. But what we do know is, when the Congress votes it, it's forced upon you, or you pay a very steep diplomatic price to reject it. Could be to do with leverage, could be stability. It's unclear. They also go on to show us the third tab of the Congress, the International Crises Vote. Here you can see two players have disagreed on something, and the player on the left, Lucy, can push this demand even further. This time, not just saying, okay, fine, I won't pay you money, but instead taking it to the International Congress, where all players in the game have to choose a side. Will they agree with Lucy and force the other player to pay 1,600 gold? Or will they side with the other player and say, actually, Lucy, you're wrong? Here we can see that play out in theory on the third tab of the Congress of Humankind, where this player, who has all of the votes, seemingly, throws their support behind Lucy. You can see the others appear to have none. There's also a bribe function here. This icon is unfamiliar. It's the leverage icon and a globe behind it. It seems to be some way to interact with the Congress, but either way, Queen Lucy has all of the power, and as Queen Lucy throws their votes behind it, you can see it flips to 100. And this matter has, in theory, now been resolved through the Congress of Humankind. And then last but not least, in the fourth section, we have diplomacy wins, and they start by revealing, again, new buildings, new districts, new wonders on screen. You can pause and pick through the little details there if you will, but more importantly here we revealed the new cultures in Humankind. We had them revealed to us. There are 6, of course, in total, 1 for each era, and every era is receiving a new culture type. In the ancient era, we have the Sumerians, who we actually know a little bit more about. They tweeted this a couple of days ago. You can see their emblematic unit and emblematic quarter. We don't yet know what yields or anything will be associated with it that hasn't been officially revealed, but we do know the names of the other cultures. We have Han in the second era, the classical era. After that, you could, if you want to, move through to playing as Bulgaria in era number 3. Following on from the Bulgarians, we have the Swiss added in next. And then in the last 2 eras, we have the Scots as the sort of industrial era power. And then finally in the contemporary era, Singapore. That concludes the 6 cultures that will be included, all, again, diplomatic ones. And if you want to see it written out on screen, here's a list of the newbies. If you're more of a visual learner or a reader, there you go. Very good. Moving swiftly along, let's have a look at what all of these will have in common. What do diplomatic cultures do in Humankind? They'll unlock their leverage to earn diplomat stars, a new type of star. They also have what I believe they refer to as their active skill, which is demilitarization. This forces one territory for 10 turns on normal speed, assuming, to be unable to be occupied by military units. But it doesn't actually force them out. It rather just says, hey, you can't be here, and if they choose to remain, As you can see, they take that trespassing penalty, an unfriendly territory, is essentially what it becomes, as if it were, say, closed borders. They also have their affinity bonus called Big Brother. This, well, in the tool text it was written as unlock the ability to collect intels on map with all types of units. What they're referring to is those leverage discoveries. Now, instead of just finding them, say, early on or with certain units, you can find them with all types of units, making it easier to rack up your stars. We also saw wonders, including the Palace of Versailles, which seems to be a huge diplomatic building, minus 20% leverage for you, plus 20% for others. We then saw a variety of other changes as they panned through the end of the trailer. They kind of bring us back through and remind us of everything that we've seen so far. That seems like probably a good thing for me to do here then as well. The Humankind Together We Rule gameplay expansion adds agents, new units, spies and envoys. Spies obviously hiding in stealth to siphon or destroy enemy units. Envoys moving freely can conduct diplomacy. We have embassies and a Congress of Humankind. Embassies give us interactions with other players that we haven't seen before, agreements around science or perhaps money and industry. We also have, more broadly, the Congress of Humankind, where we can not just take little leverage actions, but big, overarching ones to get support of other people or push our own agenda. We also, of course, have 6 new diplomatic cultures, and more yet to come. They haven't actually told us everything yet that was initially announced. I'll be covering this expansion Together We Rule, from gameplay to trailer breakdowns, you name it, I've got it, let's talk, as the expansion moves towards its release date. Thank you very much for joining me today on a very exciting day for Humankind, and I'll see you next time.